Hello and welcome. Good morning everyone to this vlog which is specially made for the Inter students. And yes, I am CACS CMA Nikhil Gupta, and in this vlog we are going to discuss some of the important chapters of your audit syllabus. This is specifically for the Inter students for paper number 12. So yes guys, audit has a weightage of 50 marks in your paper number 12. 50 marks is accounts and 50 marks is audit, and hence it is a very important paper. And trust me, it's a scoring paper. If you do some smart study, some level of filtering if you do in your studying pattern, then undoubtedly you are going to achieve good marks in your audit subject. And trust me, this subject is not only about rectification but also about understanding the basic concepts. So if you understand the concepts well, then you are able to absolutely perform well in your examination. So let's start. Today in this quick revisionary video, I'll be taking up the first chapter of your syllabus, and the first chapter is basic auditing concepts. So guys, let's start a quick revision of basics of auditing concepts. Okay, so let me first of all tell you that the word audit is derived from the word auditor. Auditor means to listen. So in earlier days, audit was done only by listening. In earlier days, audit was only done of the government accounts or the public accounts or the companies in which public was substantially interested. Audit was done only and only for those accounts. But as time passed, the audit was expanded, the scope of the audit was expanded to even private companies. And nowadays, not only for private companies, but audit is done specially for income tax purposes and GST purposes, Trust Act, VAT, every other law has some or other audit provision in their provisions. So earlier audit was very narrow in scope. Now audit is really vast in scope, and every company has to get its audit done in one way or the other. Be it tax audit, be it GST audit, be it excise audit, be it customs audit, be it special audit, be it any other audit which is required by law. So the audit which we are going to focus on in this chapter will be the audit which is prescribed under the Companies Act 1956. Whatever audit is prescribed under the Companies Act will be majorly focusing on that particular audit, and as a miscellaneous topic we'll be discussing the other audits as well. So let's start. So guys, first of all, definition of audit. You have to remember one very important word in definition of audit. Of course, audit means examination, verification, scrutiny and checking. But you have to attach one more word with these words, which is independent. So audit is independent examination, independent scrutiny, independent checking. And the modes of checking are, you have to collect evidence. So the second important element of audit is to collect evidence. So independent examination, to collect evidence, and to evaluate and judge the collected evidence, and to report those evidence in the audit report. So audit comprises of three things. One, examination of record. Second, collection of evidences and evaluation of those evidences. And third, forming an opinion. So these three things combine and make audit. So audit is independent examination of records, and it is collection of evidence and collection of the corroborative proofs, and it is requiring you to evaluate those proofs and form a judgment and report it in the audit report. So this definition is given by the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. You can learn any one of the definitions which is given. I feel that this definition is the most suitable and the most easy one to remember. You have to remember the major aspects of this definition very well. Now coming on to the meaning of audit. So audit meaning comprises of following things. Number one, examination of books of account. Number two, independent it is done by independent qualified person. Number three, it is done on the basis of vouchers and documentation available by the company. Number four, it is done for a particular period. Number five, it is to enable the auditor to give a true and fair view. So these are the elements of auditing. So auditing is comprising of all these elements. It is examination of books of accounts. It is done by an independent person. It is done through vouchers and documentation, and it is done for a particular period to express an opinion. This is meaning of audit. Now, what are the essential features of audit, guys? Essential features of audit are, it involves evaluation of relevant evidences. Number 2, it involves analytical or critical investigation. Number 3, it is comprising of financial as well as non-financial checking. Number 4, it is based on standards or certain pre-established notions or pre-established conditions. Number 4, it is to be done by a competent and independent person. Number 5, it is to enable the auditor to form an opinion. So these are the essential features of auditing. So you will find a lot of similarity between features of audit and meaning of audit. Yes, they are overlapping, guys, and if you remember one, then you will be able to remember both of these things. Then we come on to nature of auditing. What is the nature of auditing and what are the essential elements of auditing? The primary objective of auditing is to express a true and fair opinion. A question comes in the examination, guys, whether detection of error and fraud is the primary objective of the audit. Answer is no. The primary objective of the audit is to express a true and fair view. The secondary objective of the audit is to express an opinion on the frauds or to report the frauds and errors, if any, in the financial statement. But the primary objective of auditing is to express a true and fair view. Then what is the scope of audit? Guys, scope of audit, there's only one word to remember in the scope of audit. Auditor is a watchdog and not a bloodhound, which means responsibility of the auditor is to highlight the problems which are there in the financial statements. That's it. Auditor need not investigate into problems and find the root cause of the problems and try to rectify it. No, that is not the duty of the auditor. Auditor's duty is just to report the problems which it has encountered during the course of audit. So auditor is a watchdog and not a bloodhound. It cannot bite, it can just bark. So your responsibility is to highlight the inefficiencies or the problems to the management. Your responsibility is not to investigate or to take rectifying measures to correct that problem. That task is to be done by the management. So you are just a watchdog. Then what are the scope of an audit? Guys, the scope of an audit is given under SA 200A. Yes, you have to remember some of the standards of auditing, not all, but some of them, which I have highlighted in the notes. SA 200 enumerates the objective of audit, and scope of an audit in the financial statement will be determined by the auditor having regard to terms of the engagement. Scope of the audit is confined to terms of engagement. Whatever is written in terms of engagement, that is the scope of the auditor. Coming on to a very important distinction, guys. What is the difference between accounting and auditing? Please remember, accounting is a management function. You cannot do accounting if you are the auditor of the company. Accounting has to be done by management and auditing is done by the auditor. So accounting means analysis of events and transactions. It is recording and summarizing the data. It is a financial statement assertions. Assertions means claims that is made by the management that financial statements are true. Financial statements are correct. This is known as assertion. Prepare financial statements according to the recognized accounting principles and distribute the financial statement. This is accounting. However, auditing means reviewing the internal control system, evaluating the evidence, determine the fairness of statement, and prepare audit report on finding. Preparation of audit report is part of auditing procedure. Deliver the audit report to the client. So these are the activities which are to be done by auditor. These are the activities which are to be done by the management of the company. So there's a clear distinction between accounting and auditing, which you need to remember. Okay, auditor. Who is an auditor? Auditor is a person who possesses the following qualities. There are some qualities of an auditor and it's really important to possess these qualities if you want to be a auditor. Number 1, knowledge of accountancy, economics, mathematics, etc. You should be a knowledgeable person with having knowledge of accountancy, economics, mathematics, etc. Then secondly, you have to be independent. You have to have integrity. Integrity and independent means your judgment should not be biased. You should be free from any biasness from the company's side. You have to be an independent person to be an auditor. Secondly, you have to be full of integrity. Value system should be there. You should not lie. You should be an integral person. So integrity and independence are the two requirements of being an auditor. Then third is, auditor should have knowledge of general principles of law. Whichever law is there in the country which is applicable to the company, like Companies Act, like GST, like DT, like FEMA, any law which is there in the company, auditor should be aware of all the laws. Next is, the auditor should have understanding of special features of a peculiar business. So for example, if you are into telecommunication business, then you should be aware of IRDA guidelines. If you are into banking regulation business, then you should be aware about the banking guidelines. So auditor should be aware about the special features of a particular business. Then he should have basic human qualities like courtesy, like communication skills. He should have good communication skills. Basic human qualities are required in every auditor. Then he should be honest. Honesty is the best virtue which an auditor should possess. He should honestly do his duties and should honestly report in the auditor's report. Now, a very important distinction between audit and investigation, guys. I told you investigation is not the scope of the auditor, but audit is the scope of the auditor. Investigation means to dwell into the problems and to see what are the reasons for the problems and to take rectifying measures of that problem. That is investigation. Auditor is not an investigator. Auditor, responsibility of the auditor is just to do audit. What are the differences? Audit meaning is to ascertain true and fair view of the financial statements. However, investigation's objective is to ascertain the facts of a particular case. For a special purpose, if you want to investigate on the facts, then it is investigation. Scope of audit is wide in scope. Investigation is limited to that particular transaction which is being investigated. Objective is to give a true and fair view. Objective of investigation is for a special purpose. So for example, if a fraud has happened in the company, then investigation will happen. It is for a special purpose. Then the procedure adopted in audit is generally accepted auditing principles, and investigation procedure adopted in investigation are much more wide than the auditing procedures. Then evidence. Auditor will evaluate the accounting records, predominantly persuasive evidence. However, investigation can draw conclusions on the basis of substantial or sometimes conclusive evidence. So, the auditor will have evidences which is based on records. However, investigation can happen beyond records also. Investigator can go beyond the records and test whether the evidence is perfect or not. Approach. Auditor comes with a positive approach, which means he would say that everything is fine. His basic premise is everything is fine and I just want to check it. However, investigator will come with a negative frame of mind, which means he'll doubt on everything whichever is there in the company, and he'll come with a negative mind framework, and his approach will be negative approach. So he'll come with a negative mindset. However, auditor will come with a positive mindset. This is the difference between approach of an auditor and an investigator. Periodicity. Audit happens frequently, which is every year. Annually it happens. However, the investigation procedures don't happen that frequently, and it is a non-routine exercise. Audit is a routine exercise. Investigation is a non-routine exercise. So this is the periodicity of audit and investigation. Then what are the aspects to be covered in audit? What are the things to be seen in audit? What are the steps of audit? Steps of audit are to obtain an understanding. We have to obtain the understanding. Then to obtain the degree to which reliance can be placed. We need to understand the internal control system, and then we will understand what is the degree of reliance to be placed in the internal control system. So guys, internal control system is a very, very important aspect of auditing. If internal controls are strong, then auditor will employ less procedures. If internal control is weak, then auditor will employ more or stringent procedures. So for example, if management has already infused internal checks in the organization which will ensure that the inventory is booked properly in the books of accounts, then the auditor will employ less rigorous procedures. So first of all, auditor has to check the internal control systems which are existing in the company, and then he will conclude on the audit procedures. So he needs to ascertain the degree to which reliance can be placed, and he needs to review the system from time to time. Then examination of books. Second thing which he needs to do is check the arithmetical accuracy of the books. Books should be accurate, plus minus errors should not be there. Then he should test the validity of the transactions in the books, and he should test the entries in the books of accounts are adequately supported by evidencing documents. Third thing which he needs to check is compliance with the generally accepted accounting standards and applicable statutory requirements. So an auditor should check whether company has complied with the applicable statutory requirements and complied with the generally accepted accounting standards or not. Then the last objective of audit, any audit, is reporting. Auditor has to report whether the statements show a true and fair view or not. What are the objectives of the audit? I've already discussed two broad objectives of the audit. Number one is to express a true and fair view. Number two, and the secondary objective is to detect fraud and error. I hope you remember the difference between fraud and error. Fraud is an intentional mistake. Error is an unintentional mistake. This is the difference between error and fraud. But the primary objective is to express a true and fair view. Secondary objective, while fulfilling the primary objective, if some fraud comes into notice of the auditor, then he should report the fraud as well. So primary objective, secondary objective. Now let's move on to note number 1, which will clearly tell us what is fraud and error. I'll come to the annexures of the book and I am coming on to note number 1. Note number 1 say fraud is more difficult to detect than error. Comment. This is a question which is repeated in the examination many a times and hence I have given it as a note. Fraud happens intentionally and error takes place unintentionally. Fraud may be divided broadly into two categories. Defalcation, involving either misappropriation of money or good, and the fraudulent manipulation of accounts. So there are two kinds of frauds. One where cash is involved, where cash is defalcated, which means cash is misappropriated, cash is given to non-authorized sources. And second is where cash is not involved but the financial statements are window dressed, are giving a different view than what the financial statement should give. So for example, if the company has fixed assets worth 100 crore, then the balance sheet should disclose the fixed assets worth 100 crores only. However, if the balance sheet shows fixed assets of say 1000 crores, then it means the financial statements are manipulated. So fraud generally involves complicated and carefully organized schemes to hide the transactions from the eyes of the auditor or the management, such as forgery, failure to record transaction, cooking up vouchers off or expenses. So guys, more often than not, fraud is committed by the management itself. And since it is committed by the management itself, it is difficult to detect fraud, because management would make sure that it arranges the scheme in a manner, it creates fake documentation in a manner that auditor is unable to recognize or identify this fraud. So fraud is definitely much more difficult to identify as compared to error. So this is a 4 marks question which might come in your examination, so you should properly do it. I'm coming back to the module objective of auditing. And basic principles governing auditing. What are the basic principles governing auditing? Guys, integrity, objectivity and independence. These are the 3 pillars of auditing. Integrity, objectivity and independence. Guys, integrity means honesty. Objectivity means careful analysis of everything which you do. And independence means that there should be unbiasedness. You should not be biased while forming your opinion. So these 3 are pillars of auditing: integrity, objectivity and independence. Second, confidentiality. Guys, you have to keep all your audit work confidential. You don't have to disclose clients' information to any third party. Otherwise, it will be breach of confidentiality. Skill and competence. Obviously, you should have skill, you should have knowledge, you should have competence of performing the audit. This is the basic principle of auditing, that an auditor should have skill and competence. Then an auditor can rely on the work performed by other experts. Like an auditor is not an actuary. Actuary work will be done by actuarial. Actuary work is required to be done when provision for gratuity is made. Or engineer's requirement is there when we need a installation certificate or a capitalization certificate of asset. So if the auditor is relying on the work performed by others, he should carefully supervise that work and should mention that he has relied on some external certificate in the audit report as well. Documentation. Proper working papers should be maintained by the auditors. This is foremost requirement of any audit. Planning. Audit should be planned properly and it should be executed properly. Evidence should be collected while doing audit. So audit evidence is the principle of audit. Then audit conclusion and accounting system and internal control. Auditor should review the accounting systems and should review the internal controls so that it is able to ascertain whether auditing procedures are to be employed or not. And last but not at all the least, audit conclusion and reporting. Your conclusions should be perfectly formulated and reporting should be done in an appropriate manner. So these are the basic principles governing an audit. So in next video, we are going to start the next topic. This was a quick revisionary video, guys. So if you are traveling in metro or traveling to some places, you can quickly open these videos and hear them twice or thrice, so that till the examination you are able to clarify your concepts as well as learn them too. So that's all for this video. We'll meet in the next video. Till then, all the very best and happy studying.